So let's continue our discussion. In the last class, we were trying to talk about different types of retaining structures or conditions by which you can retain the soil. It could be a gabion structure, or it could be the case of your crib wall structure, or it could be sheet piles, or any other like different types of retaining structures we have been talking about. So ultimate objective of them is to retain the soil at its required elevation with that particular essential slope. In the same way, we are going to be coming across with another type of retaining structure, which I can call it as your earth retaining wall. Okay, so here this particular structure, what I am showing you in this slide, is nothing but it's a kind of a retaining wall, or more specifically, what you have here is you have some panels which are connected one to the other. You have, let's say, this is one panel, this is another panel, this is another panel. So you have got different panels. So first, at the ground, we try to dig the soil till your required depth, and accordingly we start assembling your panels one over the other, both in the vertical as well as in the lateral direction, so that now you can get your wall of that required height and to that required distance. So typically this kind of earth retaining walls are preferred, whatever are being shown here. So these are preferred in the case of your highway constructions, like in the places of your embankment constructions for highways, or in the places of your flyovers. So in all such particular places, you will be preferring to go for this kind of retaining wall. Okay. So how do we go on to construct this? So first we place your basic panels at the ground level, and you also see to those panels you have some reinforcement existing, and that reinforcing bars are extended into your pavement surface what you want to construct subsequently, or you are going to be filling the soil on this surface later on. Okay, the purpose of this reinforcing bars is that in case if your pressure exerted by the soil there, if it is more on the panel tries to relatively move away from that soil medium. So if at all panel is trying to move away from the soil medium, so these reinforcing bars which are reinforced into the soil strata there, so those reinforcing bars, if at all the panel is trying to move away, so these reinforcing bars, as they are embedded into the soil here, so they are not going to allow your panels to get deformed or dislocated from its position. That's the advantage of having your reinforcing bars which are reinforced into your ground. The other advantage is once you reinforce these reinforcing bars into the ground, so the bearing capacity of that soil what you are compacting is also going to be relatively higher because of the higher stiffness of soil what you are going to be achieving there because of the reinforcing bars. Yeah, this is how typically it looks like. The earth reinforced wall are reinforced earth walls. Okay, so these are your panels what I was mentioning. So these panels are systematically arranged one over the other, both in vertical as well as in the lateral direction, and on the other side of the panels you have your reinforcing bars which are extended into the soil strata or into the soil what you are going to be placing and subsequently compacting it. So these reinforcing bars would certainly act like your bearing capacity enhancers for that particular soil medium to achieve higher bearing capacity for the soil what is being compacted on the other side of that reinforcing wall. Okay, so and also to minimize the settlements in that particular soil medium what you are trying to have on the other side of your panels. Okay, these are typically the panels. So always you may not be talking about panels which are placed only for filling the soil after placing the panel. Sometimes if already the natural existing sloping condition of the soil is there, if you want to protect the condition of that slope without causing slope failure, so in such case also I can go for this particular reinforcing technique or earth retaining wall construction with the help of the panels. So this is how a typically your earth reinforced wall looks like after its final construction. So as mentioned, it's typically used in the construction of highways or in all the cases of the places where you want to construct the abutments in the construction of your bridges. Okay, so in all such particular cases, you can think of going for it. Now, typically, when you are going to look at a retaining structure, what are the different forces that are coming on that particular retaining structure? That is something what we need to be understanding. So, because when you are going to design a retaining structure, okay, a retaining wall, for example, so what are the different forces that are coming on that particular retaining structure? And you have to take care of all those forces, and accordingly, you have to properly design the retaining structure there. So if you look at here, if this is the ground on the higher elevated side, this is the ground level on the higher elevation side, and this is the ground on the lower elevated side. So what is going to happen is the soil which is there on the higher elevated side would exert relatively more force on that retaining wall, because of which the retaining wall tries to move away from that higher elevated ground. Now, if the retaining wall is trying to move away from the higher elevated ground, what is happening towards the lower elevated ground? So, retaining wall is moving towards that lower elevated ground. So, in that sense, pressure exerted by this soil, okay, which is on the higher elevated side, would be the active earth pressure, because this particular soil is trying to push a retaining wall away from its position. So the pressure exerted by this soil, which is on the higher elevated side, or onto the upper ground side, so that pressure is what is called as your active earth pressure. And due to that condition of active earth pressure on the higher elevated side, retaining wall is trying to move away from its position. So when I say moving away, so automatically it moves towards the soil which is on the lower elevated ground side. So in the process, when it is getting moved towards your lower elevated ground side, so obvious that the soil which is there on the other side of your retaining structure, towards which the retaining wall is moving, so that soil would be exerting what is called as your passive earth pressure. Okay. So the soil on higher elevated side is generating what is called as an active earth pressure. The soil on the lower elevated side is generating what is called as a passive earth pressure. So as a designer, I should have in my mind, okay, from this side, what you have is an active earth pressure resultant thrust force coming on the retaining wall. From this side, you have what is called as a passive resultant thrust force coming from the soil on the retaining wall, and from the bottom also, because ultimately through this retaining structure, the complete load is getting transferred onto the bottom layers or the sub layers of your soil strata. So what is happening is load initially gets transferred from the soil onto the retaining structure, and from the retaining structure, ultimately the load has to be transferred onto the soil on which that retaining structure is being constructed. So when you are trying to talk about the load which is getting transferred from the retaining structure onto the soil on which it is resting, so even the soil would offer some reaction. Okay, and that is what we call it as your subsoil reaction, or ground pressure, or you can also call it as your bearing pressure. Okay, so pressure exerted by the soil at the bottom of the retaining wall. So that's what we are mentioning here. And obvious that you are also going to be considering the effect of the weight of the retaining wall. So after understanding all the different forces which are coming on that retaining structure, then to take care of all these effects, like weight of the retaining wall has to be taken into consideration, active earth pressure force, passive earth pressure force, if at all they are getting developed. And from the bottom, there is a reaction, subgrade reaction, what is getting offered by the soil at the bottom of the retaining structure. So I have to take care of all these forces, and I should accordingly design my retaining wall carefully, which satisfies all the requirements, all the forces which are coming onto that retaining wall are safely being carried by the retaining wall and properly distributed onto the soil which is there below your retaining structure. In case if the retaining wall is not properly designed, you would come across with some situations where you can see here this failure, what we have indicated here. Okay, so this is a failure of a retaining structure. So why did that failure happen? So the failure, basically this retaining structure was designed for the construction of a dam. Okay, in the process of construction of a dam, this retaining structure is designed, and the purpose of this retaining structure was to retain the water on the water storage side. Okay. But what has happened is over time, maybe because of your excess pressures which are getting developed on the retaining wall, or maybe the uplift pressure what is getting developed at the bottom of the retaining structure, which is relatively higher. Okay, so when compared to the weight of your retaining structure, so because of whatever could be the reason, So ultimately what has been understood is the failure has happened in that retaining structure, because of which the water which was supposed to be getting stored on the upstream is no more stored on the upstream. Rather, they started moving away towards the downstream. So you have to design your retaining structure very carefully, understanding what are the different forces which are coming on it, and accordingly taking into consideration of all those forces with the required factor of safety. So we have to ensure that your retaining structure is going to be safe in consideration of all the failure criterion. It can be in terms of the sliding, it can be in terms of the rotation, it can be in terms of your bearing capacity criterion. Okay, so whatever the criterion that you adopt, in all those aspects, your retaining wall, what you are trying to design, has to be safe. Okay, here we are not going into the details of designing a retaining structure, but however, we are just trying to have an idea of, okay, all these forces would certainly play a major role in design aspect of your retaining structure. So when you are talking about the design of a retaining wall, so first we should understand what are the basic primary functions that the retaining wall is supposed to be satisfying. And once we know what is the purpose or the basic functionalities that the retaining wall has to be satisfying, then what are the factors that are to be taken into consideration? Because the designed retaining wall has to be safe against what all factors, what all considerations. Okay, so that all we should understand, and what could be the possible factors which could affect the design of your retaining structure. Design the retaining structure in the sense, what are the factors which would govern the design aspects of your retaining structure? Let's quickly understand that. So retaining wall has a basic primary function, that is to retain the soil at an angle which is more than that of your soil's natural angle of repose. Soil by its own natural condition, depending on the C5 parameters of the soil, by its own natural condition, soil can have some slope at which it is going to be stable. But if you want to have your soil to be kept still stable and safe with a higher slope, so in such case, we go on to use what is called as your retaining structure. Walls within the design height range are designed to provide necessary resistance, either by their own mass or by the principles of your leverage. Okay, so whenever you are trying to design your retaining structure, so we try to design your retaining structure in a way that the retaining structure is going to be stable by its own weight, because of its own weight, or by any other factors by which you are trying to restrain the rotation or displacements in that retaining wall. What are the different design considerations that we have to take into which we should take into consideration, design aspects which we should take into consideration while designing your retaining wall? Okay, so one important thing is that there should not be any overturning happening in your retaining wall. So your retaining wall which is constructed, which was supposed to be vertical, you should not see any rotation happening in that retaining wall. That is one criteria. And you should not see that retaining wall is moving in the forward direction. That means there should not be any sliding happening in the position of the retaining wall. Retaining wall still is vertical without any rotation, but what happens is, instead of having the retaining wall here, it starts moving in the forward direction because of the excess earth pressure coming from the adjacent soil, what the retaining structure is trying to retain on the higher elevated side. Okay, and it also depends, the factors what you should have also in your mind is the materials that are used and suitable in the construction of that particular retaining wall. And we should also understand that what is the bearing capacity of the soil, subsoil over which your retaining wall is being constructed. Because if your load what you want to transfer through the retaining wall onto the soil, ultimately if it is more then compared to that of the bearing capacity of the soil, then obvious that your retaining structure is not going to be safe in terms of the bearing capacity aspect. Okay, so you have to be very careful in understanding first what are the soil properties or the soil conditions of that subsoil, and then accordingly how much is the bearing capacity of that soil and how much is the load which you want to transfer, how much pressure you want to get transferred from your retaining structure onto the soil. So based on that, always the load what you want to transfer through the retaining structure onto the soil should be less than that of your allowable bearing capacity of that particular soil on which the retaining structure is constructed. Some of those technical terms like bearing capacity, allowable bearing pressure, and so on. We'll try to understand in the next subsequent units. In the third unit, we'll be more clearly understanding about that. So the factors which designer need to take into account while designing the retaining wall is the nature and the characteristics of the subsoil. Yes. So without knowing the condition of the subsoil, it's not possible to construct any structure. Okay. And we should also be knowing the position of your water table, because the position of water table plays a major role, as we mentioned. Like if the water table is there, then the shear strength of the soil could be different. If the water table is not there, then the shear strength of the soil could be different. And in case of water table present, then we should understand about how the pore water pressures are building in the soil. So whether there is a possibility of releasing that excess pore water pressures which are getting developed or not. So we should be understanding about all those particular aspects. Okay. So if pore water pressures are excess pore water pressures are getting developed, then automatically shear strength of the soil is going to decrease. But we don't want the strength of the soil to decrease, because if the strength of the soil decreases, then you are going to have adverse effects in that stability of the retaining structure. So for minimizing the effect of pore water pressures, you should have a proper drainage system designed in the process of constructing your retaining wall. Okay, so all those aspects are to be taken into consideration. And we should also be subsequently deciding on what should be the type of the retaining wall or retaining structure that you should be using in that particular case, and what are the different materials that are to be used in the construction, and obviously the availability of the materials in the nearby location. That also something has to be thought of, because if you want to go by the design of that retaining structure by some material, but that material is not very much locally available or easily available, so the design aspect you can satisfy, but economical aspect you have to compromise on it in such particular case. So as I mentioned, like in order to minimize the effect of your excess pore water pressures, so we provide what is called as your proper drainage condition by placing what is called as coarse grained material immediately on the other side of the retaining structure, which is directly in contact with the surface of the retaining wall, so that whatever the water that is existing in the soil, which is being retained on the higher elevated side, so the water gets drained into that coarser medium, and from that coarser medium, with the help of some we call these as drain pipes or a weep hole. Okay, so with the help of that, through those weep holes, the water starts seeping through, and you see that water gets drained out of that retaining structure on the other side, without having or without causing much effect on the decrease in the shear strength of that soil, which is being retained on the higher elevated side. So the purpose of this wall drainage, as I mentioned, like ultimately to minimize the effect of your excess pore water pressures, which could result into the condition of your unstable aspects of your retaining structure. Okay. So in order to minimize the effect of the excess pore water pressures, and to ensure that your instability aspect of retaining wall do not come into picture. Okay, so we are going to provide a proper drainage condition with a proper filtration medium, which is provided on the other side of the retaining wall towards your higher elevated side, so that the water or excess pore water pressure what is getting developed on the in the soil, which is on the higher elevated side, that excess pore water pressure dissipation happens, water gets easily drained into that filter material or filter medium, and from that filter medium through a weep hole, okay, water can easily get drained out onto the other side of the retaining wall. This is one way. The other way is you can try to provide what is called as a perforated pipe. Through this filter medium, the water gets entered into that perforated pipe, and through that perforated pipe, the water can be collected and get drained out on some particular place where the effect of this drainage condition would not alter the condition of your soil properties. Okay. So that's how you can think of providing a proper wall drainage system, so that the effect of your excess pore water pressures do not cause a decrease in the shear strength of the soil, which is being retained on the higher elevated side, and which would not cause the instability in your retaining wall, what you are trying to design there. And what are the different modes of failure that we are going to be coming across in the case of a retaining structure? Because whatever the retaining structure that you are going to be designing should be satisfying all these basic criterions, because it should not fail in terms of sliding, it should not be failing in terms of overturning effect, because overturning in the sense the rotation failure you should not see, bearing capacity failure you should not see, shear failure you should not be coming across with. When I say shear failure, it could be the shallow shear failure or your deep shear failure. So the failure in the soil medium which is there below your retaining structure, over certain smaller depth below the retaining structure, if the soil is undergoing the shearing, then we call it a shallow shear failure. Or to relatively deeper depths, in case if the soil which is there below your retaining structure, if it is a weak soil, then all possibilities that no, your retaining structure might get punched into that soil strata, or you would come across with excess settlements happening in that weaker soil strata, because of which the design of the retaining structure might be satisfying all the criterions, but excess settlement if your retaining structure is going to have, then also we say that your structure is not going to be safe. Because any structure that you are going to be designing on the ground, okay, it has to satisfy both the criterions. Like, because any structure, when I say ultimately the structural load of any structure gets transferred through the foundation of that structure onto the soil. Okay, so when it comes to the case of the foundation has to be designed to satisfy two criterion. One is called as your bearing capacity criterion, and the second is called as your serviceability criterion. So bearing capacity criterion means the load what was supposed to be safely transferred from that structure onto the soil through the foundation has to be safely distributed. In case if that cannot be distributed because of whatever the reason it is, then we say the failure is happening in the soil which is there below the foundation, and that's what we call it as your bearing capacity failure. So the soil below the foundation is not bearing the load what is coming from the structure. So in such case, the failure is called as your bearing capacity failure. And sometimes the soil below the foundation might be capable of taking the load what is coming from the foundation, but in the process of carrying that load, the soil might be undergoing more amount of settlements in it, which are beyond the permissible limit as per the standard codes. Okay, so in such particular case also we say your foundation has undergone the failure. So what are the different possible modes of failure that we come across in the case of retaining structure means? So we come across what is called a sliding failure, overturning failure, bearing capacity failure, and subsequently shear failure. So sliding failure means because of the load coming from this soil which is there on the higher elevated side of the retaining structure. So sometimes your retaining wall might start moving in the forward direction. That is what we call it as sliding takes place in that retaining structure. Okay. So that is a possibility. Why does this sliding happens? Because the force coming on this retaining wall from the higher elevated ground, if it is more than that of the resistance what gets developed at the base of this retaining wall, and as well as the resistance additionally offered because of this passive earth pressure thrust force. So the total force being resisted, if it is less than that of the force what is being exerted by the higher elevated soil on your retaining structure, then your retaining wall tries to move in the forward direction. So we should not have such kind of forward displacement happening in the retaining wall. So such failure is what we call it as your sliding failure. To ensure that your sliding failure do not happen in the retaining wall, the factor of safety what you are going to be happening anytime whenever you talk about factor of safety. So factor of safety is nothing but here we are talking in terms of the forces. Okay, so your resisting force, the ratio of the resisting force to that of your driving force should be greater than 1.5. So in such particular case, if your resisting force, what does this resisting force mean here in this particular case? Okay, so resisting force includes your frictional resistance. Example I am referring to, and your passive resistance also. And your sliding, your driving force or the force causing the sliding here is your active force, active thrust force. Okay, the ratio of this force being resisted to that of the force being force causing the driving in the soil. So if that ratio is greater than 1.5, then you can say, okay, ultimately your retaining wall is safe against your sliding action. And in the same way, you are also expected to have what is called as an overturning effect. Overturning effect in the sense the rotation happening in your retaining structure about the toe portion. This portion, this part is what is called as the toe part of the retaining wall. Okay, so about the toe portion, you would see the rotation happening in the retaining structure. Why does it happen? Because the net resultant moment causing the rotation about the toe is more than that of the net resisting moment about the toe. So in such particular case, you see the rotation happening in that particular retaining structure. Okay, so if the resisting, some of the resisting moments, here the resisting moments, whenever we are talking about, it could be because of your passive thrust force, and due to the weight of wall, and also due to your any other resistances that you are coming across with at the base of the retaining wall. But at the base of the retaining wall, the effect of that resistance would not cause any rotation, or it will not generate any moment resisting the rotation. Okay, because the line of action of that resisting force coincides with the toe portion about which you are calculating your moments. Okay, so you're here also the factor of safety against the rotation should be more than 1.5 to 2 to ensure that your overturning failure do not happen in your retaining structure. So how do we define the factor of safety here? The ratio of your summation of moments summation of your resisting moments to that of your moments causing your overturning in that particular retaining structure. So if that ratio is greater than 1.5 to 2, we can ensure that your retaining wall is safe against the rotation failure. So, and other possibility of failure is bearing capacity failure, as I mentioned. So the soil which is there below your retaining structure, because this base of the retaining structure is nothing but it acts like a foundation. Okay, so this I can say it's something like a foundation to your retaining structure. So the load from the adjacent soil gets transferred onto the retaining wall, from the retaining wall through the base of the retaining wall, which we are calling it as foundation here. So from that, the load gets transferred onto the soil on which the retaining structure is resting. In case the force which can be safely transferred from the base of the retaining structure onto the soil, if it is the force what you are trying to transfer from the base of the retaining structure onto the soil, if it is greater than the bearing capacity of that particular soil or the load carrying capacity of that soil, okay, allowable bearing capacity of the soil, we call it as. Okay, so in such particular case, we say your foundation or rather your retaining structure is failing because of your bearing capacity criterion. So in order to satisfy your foundation is safe or your retaining structure is safe, in fact, in terms of your bearing capacity criterion, so your factor of safety, what you are going to be calculating, should be greater than 3. So here QNA refers to that of your net allowable bearing capacity of that soil, and P max indicates what's the maximum pressure that you are trying to transfer from the retaining structure onto the soil below it. And next, subsequently, the shear failure. So shear failure could be of two types, as I mentioned. It could be shallow shear failure or deep shear failure. So what does this shear failure means? Soil below the retaining structure would start getting sheared along some failure surface. Okay, because of which the particle starts relatively getting displaced. Okay, soil particles would relatively start getting displaced onto one side, and they would start getting deposited onto one particular side in this case. Or in the case of a foundation, typically, which is having a uniform deformation happening in the vertical direction, in such particular case, your relative movement of the soil particles can also get displaced on either side of the retaining wall, would cause a heave formation on either side of the retaining structure, could result on either side of the foundation, which could result into the failure, what is called as your shear failure. Okay, but however, as this is the case of a retaining structure, so the soil pressure exerted from the higher elevated ground is more, so more possibility of soil particles getting dislocated towards your lower elevated ground is more, and which tends to cause what is called as your shear failure. This portion of the soil in this region would get sheared, okay, and you would see they get particles go and get deposited in the process of shearing. They go and get deposited on other side of your retaining structure. A kind of a heave formation or a soil deposition heave takes place on the other side, resulting in a failure in your foundation, which we are calling it as your shear failure. And if at all that shear failure is happening in the soil over relatively a smaller depth below the retaining structure, then we call it as your shallow shear failure. Or in case if that shear failure is happening into the deeper layers, because sometimes what happens is that the soil layer which is immediately there below your retaining structure might be strong, but the soil layer which is there below that stronger layer could be sometimes weaker soil strata. Okay, so in case if you have a weaker soil strata underlying a stronger soil strata, so there could be some possibility that if the load transfer is happening from your retaining structure onto the stronger soil strata, and if the load is retained only by that stronger soil strata, then no problem. But in case if that load transfer is further happening onto the weaker soil strata, so in such particular case, your shearing, even the shear failure surface, even gets extended into your weaker soil strata, which causes the instability to your retaining structure. So such kind of shear failure is what we call it as your deep shear failure. Deep shear failure in the sense your shear failure or the failure in the soil strata is extended into the ground deeper into the soil layers. Okay, such failure is what we are calling it as your deep shear failure. Okay, so with this, and when you are talking about this deep shear failure criterion, one more important thing what we should have in our mind is the retaining structure has to be also checked for what is called as the excess settlement, because whenever you have deep shear failure happening, so as I said, it's a weaker soil strata into which the shearing is happening. So weaker strata is having less shear strength parameters, so resulting in more settlement in it. So we should also check for that excess settlements, whether you are encountering any excess settlements in that retaining structure or not. Okay, so with this, I conclude the topic on earth pressure, and we have understood in length and in detail about what is meant by earth pressure, in which case we come across with different states of earth pressure like active or passive or at rest condition, and both for C5 soil or only for cohesive soil or only for cohesionless soil, for all different conditions we have seen, with backfill, horizontal, backfill, inclined, retaining wall which is vertical and smooth, retaining wall which is vertical and inclined. And we have seen different theories based on which we can go on to estimate that earth pressure values. It could be Rankine's earth pressure theory or Coulomb's earth pressure theory. In the case of Coulomb's earth pressure theory, we have also talked about the condition of friction existing between the retaining wall surface and the adjacent soil. What is it retaining? And we have also understood that basic difference between your Rankine's theory and Coulomb's theory. And we subsequently went on to understand what is meant by a retaining structure, the purpose of that retaining structure, different types of retaining structures which we come across with. Okay, and when we were discussing about the types of retaining structures, we just gave an idea of what are the different types of retaining structures, but we didn't go into the depth of how those structures are to be designed and so on. That's with respect to the limitation that we have got with respect to the syllabus aspect of this course. Okay, but when you go to your advanced courses in your higher studies like advanced geotechnical engineering or advanced foundation analysis and design courses, so you would be coming across with that aspects also taken into consideration in the learning process. Okay, and we have understood what are the different modes of failure that you come across in your retaining structure. What are the factors that you should take into consideration in the design of your retaining structures and so on, is what we have looked at. And with this, we conclude our discussion. That's the first unit, which we call it as earth pressure. And when we meet next time, we start with your second unit, that is your subsoil exploration, or we call it as geotechnical investigation. Thank you. Thank you all.